Hello, and welcome back to another installment of the 50 States Haunted House series. My name is Olivia, and this week we will take a peek at the history and the horror of the Summerwind Mansion in Wisconsin. So grab a chair and your favorite fireside snacks and come sit by the fiber while I tell you this week's ghost story. I wanted to start off by mentioning that things might look a little bit different in this video. I've been trying to troubleshoot a bit of the technical difficulties I had with the autofocus in my first video, so I had to do some adjusting. Shout out to my ever supportive and far more tech-savvy spouse for helping me out in this process, because truly, these videos would not exist without their help. Anyway, I'm still new to making videos, so thank you for bearing with me while I get the hang of it. Now on to the spooky information. Also known as the Lamont Mansion, this large 32-room home is located on the shores of West Bay Lake in Vilas County, Wisconsin. This home was originally built as a fishing lodge in 1914, but was purchased in 1916 by Robert Pattinson Lamont, who was the U.S. Secretary of Commerce under President Herbert Hoover. Upon purchasing the home, Lamont immediately began renovations to expand the residence and turn it into a vacation home. It is said that the hauntings began under Lamont's ownership of the home. Legend says that several of his servants reported hearing disembodied voices in the home. There's even a story that describes Lamont sitting down to dinner one night and seeing the basement door open before his eyes as a woman in a long white gown with dark black hair ascended the steps. This caused Lamont to fire his gun on reflex, causing no harm to the apparition, but leaving 2 bullet holes in the door to his basement. And can I just take a brief moment here to exit the whimsy of this ghost story and say, huh? Because, look, while I am not Mr. Lamont, I don't know that if I lived in a house that had maids and butlers moving around at all times of the day, that I would just reflectively shoot one that I didn't recognize. Like, picture for a moment that you are a new maid in a home, and the person who's been training you all day says, "You did a great job today. I think that we're going to keep you on, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to Mr. Lamont before you head out for the day? He should just be upstairs eating dinner." So you go upstairs, you open the door, and before you can even say, "Hi," you get shot. Now who are you? No rational measures taken, like, I don't know, maybe just getting up and leaving? No, just bang. I don't know if this particular woman in white had a sort of menacing, "I'm gonna haunt you" energy, but I just think it was bold to shoot at this woman, ghost or not. Anyway, this allegedly caused the Lamont family to flee the house. And though Mr. Lamont has copious amounts of writings, there's no reference to this in any of them. So, decide for yourself how you feel about this particular story. If I had to wager, I would say very little of it, if any at all, is true. After the Lamonts sold the home, it changed ownership several times. It was bought by the Kiefer family in 1941, and though there are no significant reports of paranormal activity under their ownership, it is said that Mrs. Kiefer was afraid to enter the home on her own. And to be fair, large houses can feel isolating, so whether it was ghosts or just the unease of being somewhere large on your own, I get it. But it would be under the ownership of the Hinshaw family that the mansion would gain its notoriety. While living there, Mrs. Hinshaw's father, Raymond Bober, wrote a book titled The Carver Effect, A Paranormal Experience. In this book, he wrote about his experiences in the home, claiming that it was haunted by an 18th century explorer named Jonathan Carver. In the book, he talked about hearing disembodied voices, feeling cold gusts of wind, and even finding bodies in the wall during his time at the home. He also mentioned that the remodelers refused to go into the home after several instances of their equipment catching fire, tools going missing, and cars starting on their own. But nothing was more perplexing to them than the rooms seeming to change shape and dimension on their own, leaving all of their measurements useless. The best part about all of these claims is that Raymond Bober's neighbors say that he never even lived in the house or slept in it. He stayed in a trailer on the property, so I imagine that this is all a load of hogwash. But it would be these stories that would catapult the home onto the maps of paranormal enthusiasts after several of Raymond Bober's quote-unquote experiences were cited in a 1980 Life magazine article about haunted homes throughout America. The home would later burn down in 1985 after being struck by lightning. While there was some speculation it might have been arson to prevent teenage shenanigans, or even to keep the ghosts at bay, it was ruled as being struck by lightning due to the storm that evening, and neighbors reported being woken by the sound of loud thunder. What remains of the mansion today is mostly foundation and two large chimney stacks, and while the property is not generally open for touring, it was open briefly for touring in 2021 by a local paranormal group. And that is this week's look at the Summerwind Mansion. It was difficult to find resources for this particular building that felt rooted in information outside of the paranormal, but for this information I used Wikipedia as well as a WXPR and Only in Your State article that I will link down below. If you ask me, I don't think this place was ever haunted, though it might be one of my new favorite ghost stories to tell. I love the idea of these over-the-top and very likely completely fabricated stories bringing this home to paranormal fame. There's just something fun to how you can tell the story of this location, you know? It's a shame that the home no longer exists, and though I do like the prospect of the local group opening it up for investigation once in a while, I tend to be fairly skeptical of outdoor paranormal investigations because I just feel like the environment is generally not the most suitable for catching reliable evidence. But maybe it's different on these tours. I'm not willing to discount it since I haven't ever gone, I suppose. But if you have ever visited what remains of the Summerwind Mansion, please comment below and let me know all about it. And finally, if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to the page. You can also find me on Instagram and Etsy at SitByTheFiber. See ya!